My entire career started by seeing this one image of a black trans woman in 1836, and her name was Mary Jones. We don't really have much information about her. But there is this poster in which they call her the man monster, and they warn people away from her. And the reason this really kickstarted my desire to archive black trans people was because this was the only surviving archival piece of a black trans person visually captured. It's a poster that's literally going to be put around cities saying, do not trust this person. It's not really acceptable that that is the only history we have of black trans people. And I wanted to see how much I could use numbers and just the alphabet to capture and store black trans information, and how that could maybe turn into a new language in itself. When I first conceived of this exhibition, the idea was that I wanted to hark back to the early days of video games and how, in most cases, they use the text base of the computer, which they call the ASCII set, which is just the numbers and letters on the keyboard. And it kind of branched out to looking into horror and how both horror and transness are very much intertwined, and how films like Psycho helped create this fear-mongering around trans people. And so trying to reconcile both those things within this space using the format of text as the main medium. People are often asking, like, when does the archiving come in? Like, at what point in your process are you archiving? And it's every point, it's every place that I'm working is archiving. And a lot of the panels are actually made from black trans people's faces. I use my art practice as a way to record what I'm going through and those around me and what they're going through. This image Trans Detective is about the moment of someone finding out that you're trans, but the way they're looking at you is in a much more investigative way. I mean, often it's very terrifying. It's almost like a murder mystery for them, and they're trying to figure out exactly which parts of your body have transitioned and which parts haven't. Looking for clues is way more about empowering yourself, even though these eyes are on you. It's trying to diary entry me pushing through that moment of feeling like a monster, feeling dehumanized, feeling othered, and instead using it as an empowering positional moment to try and say, you're looking at me in all these ways, but I don't care.
You are leaving your friend's house. You're walking home alone at night. Protect yourself from the night.
It's really strange, because when I started designing Get Home Safe, I wasn't sure what it was going to be. And I've always had this idea of building this very high detail graphics game of this like black trans person walking in a really amazing look. At that time, I was like, okay, this is a horror version, so when I'm thinking of walking, I'm thinking of trying to get home safe, I'm thinking of rushing home. And this game was all about failing to me. It's about not knowing how to get home safe. It's about not knowing how to protect a black trans person. When I really started to understand that it was all about failure and all about not finding it easy to get home. And essentially what I was using it as was a way of just archiving everything that I've gone through and all of the fears, wants, and desires that have happened during my walk home. The audio in the game, I'm someone who likes to put a lot of limits on myself. And so every song needs to be made in a single go. Walking home was part of a process of getting in this mindset of what this game would be, what this exhibition would be. So a lot of the audio that you hear that is vocal, a lot of it was made actually walking home. I just do it from gut feeling of that moment. The holograms are essentially archive movements of 3 different black trans people and myself. And these movements are then translated onto a 3D animated character and then transferred into text. Something about having ASCII text to represent a moving image is that it almost sparkles. It almost looks like it is glitter, but you can go up to it and read it. And at the same time, there's an audio component which you can listen to what these people are trying to say. There's so many translations within that work that what comes out of it is completely ununderstandable, and you have to take a moment to understand what you're seeing and the different levels of reading it, so you can step up to it very close and look at what the actual text is saying or trying to say, and then you can step back and see the image. There's a different register when you're doing either of those motions. I'm not so much into just archiving for the sake of showing an image of a black trans person, because I believe that we have a big problem with misuse of archives, misrepresentation of images, and the obsession with what a trans person looks like rather than the obsession with archiving the livelihood of a trans person. There's just a lot of references just stuck all on those walls, both terrifying, good, bad, all this kind of stuff. One of the main evil images within all of the work is actually the Queen, the Queen of England. And so I used her face as a kind of foundation to have that long ingrained historical power that's against us. And so her face kind of exists within the walls. There's also Martha P in the wall, there's also Janet Mock, Mary Jones, but it's all about that process of background archiving so that when people maybe dig into the assets later on in my life, we'll begin to find out more. And so I wanted to have those references in there so that when I'm putting these images of black trans people on the walls and saying there's black trans power in looking good, in stunting, or when I have this game about walking home alone at night and feeling safe, we have all the foundational elements of the fear of royalty, of lineage, of people trying to make the world better now in the space already. Because I believe that telling the story on top of them usually allows you to hold a deeper and richer, more nuanced kind of conversation.